The sun was barely cresting the horizon, casting a golden glow over the neatly trimmed lawns and pristine facades of our suburban enclave. It was the kind of morning that promised tranquility, the kind that every homeowners association dreams of preserving with fervent regulations and passive-aggressive notes. Yet, beneath this peaceful facade, a subtle war was brewing, and I had unwittingly become its antagonist. I'd always taken pride in my garden. It wasn't the verdant expanse that boasted award-winning roses, but it was mine. The earth sang beneath my hands as I tended to each leaf and blossom, nurturing life in the quiet hours before the world awoke. My sanctuary, a place where my thoughts could roam as freely as the butterflies visiting the marigolds. That was until Karen moved in next door. Karen, with her perpetual scowl and clipped tones, the unofficial HOA enforcer, self-appointed guardian of neighborhood standards. She had an uncanny knack for sniffing out minor infractions like a bloodhound on a scent. First, it was my mailbox, 2 inches taller than the approved height. Next, the hue of my front door a shade too bold for her liking. Petty grievances she wielded like tiny daggers, each designed to pierce the bubble of my peace. I could have retaliated with equal pettiness, but I chose instead to let her barbs slide off like water on a duck's back. My garden was my refuge, and her words were nothing but distant thunder. That is, until the morning I noticed the subtle difference in the sound of my sprinklers. A quiet neighborhood has its own symphony, birds chirping, leaves rustling, and yes, the rhythmic tick-tick-tick of water arcs mirroring the gentle sway of suburban tranquility. Yet, as I sipped my coffee, staring out at the dew-kissed grass, I sensed a discordant note. The sprinklers seemed thirstier. Their rhythm rushed, as if covering more ground than before. It was then that I saw the trail, a thin, winding path of moisture leading from one struggling patch of grass towards the subdivision boundary, my boundary with Karen's property. Her lawn, lush and vibrant, mocked mine with its emerald splendor. The realization settled in my mind like a stone in a pond, sending ripples of disbelief. My water, diverted by clandestine means, nourishing her grass while mine withered in the summer heat. Theft, pure and simple, underhanded yet ingeniously simple. I could almost admire the audacity of it. Almost. I stood in the silence of my kitchen, the cool tile grounding me as I considered my options. I could confront her, demand recompense, even involve the HOA in this backyard scandal, but no, that would only give her the satisfaction of knowing she had disturbed my peace. Instead, a plan unfurled within me, as naturally as a vine, seeking the sun. I would not be the one to disturb the harmony of our enclave with confrontation or complaint. No, my response would be as quiet and unassuming as I had been all along, a small twist in the tale that Karen would never anticipate. Vinegar and dye, innocuous household items, yet together they could weave a tapestry of unexpected consequence. The idea lingered in my mind, a seed taking root in the fertile soil of creative retaliation. She would never see it coming. The day stretched on, the sun climbing higher, casting sharper shadows. I went about my routine, my thoughts a quiet hum beneath the mundane tasks. The world continued its gentle spin, unaware of the subtle shift in my corner of suburbia. In the days to come, it would be Karen's turn to experience the unexpected, a splash of color in her green paradise, a question mark in her ordered world. Until then, I would wait, as calm and patient as the gardener I had always been. The morning sun spilled over the rooftops, casting long shadows across the neighborhood. My eyes followed the familiar path to my front lawn, still recovering from its unintentional bath in blue-tinted vinegar. Karen's grass, lush and vibrant, next door, mocked me silently. Her green utopia, thriving at the expense of my well, was a constant, irksome reminder of her audacity. In retaliation, Karen, true to her nature, escalated. She wielded her position on the homeowners association like a sword, slashing through the neighborhood with absurdity wrapped in the guise of order. Her first decree arrived in the form of a letter, crisply tucked into my mailbox. It was an official citation, a warning against unsightly discoloration of my lawn, a crime against our community's aesthetic harmony. Irony was not lost on me. She had the audacity to play the victim, leveraging the HOA's regulations like some fantastical weapon of mass disruption. Her new rules were as ridiculous as they were petty. No non-regulation hoses, no unsanctioned lawn treatments, no unapproved water usage. Each line cataloged meticulously, a testament to her obsessive quest for control. I could feel the neighborhood's gaze, their whispers hanging in the air like a dense fog. Karen's tales, spun with the precision of a spider weaving her web, painted me as the renegade neighbor. Her favorite narrative was one of blatant water theft, a desperate attempt to tarnish my reputation. I imagined her voice, dripping with feigned righteousness, as she regaled the neighborhood with tales of my supposed infractions. The gossip spread with the tenacity of a wildfire. I became a character in Karen's melodrama, a narrative punctuated with snippets of scandal and speculation. Yet, beneath the surface, a quiet rebellion brewed. I refused to play victim to her machinations. I leaned into the absurdity, embraced it. My lawn, now a canvas of unexpected hues, became a symbol of quiet defiance. It was a reminder that beauty wasn't confined to a palette of green. The neighborhood, initially scandalized, began to see the humor, the unexpected charm, in the rebellion against conformity. Karen, unyielding, watched with hawk-like vigilance, her brow furrowed as we exchanged glances across our manicured border. Her irritation was as palpable as the morning dew, her frustration simmering beneath her carefully curated exterior. Still, she pushed forward, her gossip becoming more desperate, more transparent. In the quiet moments, I found solace in the small victories, neighbors who nodded in solidarity, who whispered encouragement in passing. They saw through the veneer of Karen's authority, recognized the ridiculousness in her crusade. And so, the stage was set, a peculiar dance of power and defiance, unfolding beneath the unassuming facade of suburban tranquility. Each morning, I stepped outside, drawing strength from the absurdity of it all, ready to face the day and whatever new decree Karen might concoct. In the grand theater of suburban warfare, I played my part, with quiet dignity. Knowing the climax was yet to come, the sun sunk lower, a soft, golden glow casting long shadows across the neighborhood. I stood by my living room window, observing the scene outside like a watchful guardian. The neighborhood was quiet, eerily so, peaceful, but not. It was the calm before the storm, and I had plans for the tempest. Karen's lawn glistened in the late afternoon light, an emerald expanse so audaciously green it seemed almost out of place, a reminder of her narcissistic need to assert control over even nature itself. She had the audacity to siphon my water, an act as brazen as it was petty. I documented everything, each drop of my utility bill that surged like an angry tide, pages of evidence, enough to bury her in her own deceit, but paperwork was only the beginning. I walked into my kitchen. On the counter lay my preparation, a concoction of vinegar and food dye innocent ingredients, but together, a powerful alchemy. I smiled at the irony. She wanted a lush lawn, but there are always consequences for taking what isn't yours. A lesson in humility was overdue. With a steady hand, I made my way to the water spigot she believed was her secret. The dying light painted the world in shades of orange and purple. The air thick with anticipation, I poured the mixture with deliberate care, a perfumed promise of retribution. I lingered a moment, listening to the world exhale around me. The cicadas began their evening chorus, filling the silence with their rhythmic song. It was almost poetic, nature reclaiming its voice, a foreshadowing of the chaos to come. The dye would seep in slowly, turning her pristine lawn into a patchwork of vibrant hues. Brilliant, vivid, undeniable, a mark as indelible as her arrogance. It was a small victory, but one rich in satisfaction. With the deed done, I returned inside, my heart beating a steady rhythm of anticipation. The ticking clock on the wall seemed louder, each second pulling me toward the inevitable unveiling. There is a particular satisfaction in knowing justice is about to be served, even if the menu is a little unorthodox. The next morning unfolded with the grace of a symphony. Birds danced on the air, their songs a delicate counterpoint to the chaos I anticipated. Sunlight broke in shards over rooftops. And there it was, Karen's lawn, a kaleidoscope of colors, red, pink, neon green. It was a sight to rival the most vivid of rainbows. I watched from my window, a silent witness to the unfolding drama. The neighborhood stirred awake, eyes widening in disbelief, whispers spreading like wildfire. When Karen emerged, her expression was a masterpiece of shock and confusion, quickly contorting into anger. A single, wild shout pierced the morning air. And that was enough to confirm that my message was received, a reminder to respect boundaries, even those invisible to the untrained eye. I allowed myself a moment of triumph. Small victories, I told myself, they add up. And as I stood there, eyes steady on the scene, I felt the weight lift, not out of malice, but out of necessity, balance restored, if only for a moment in this suburban battleground, a dance of colors on a canvas of grass and my water, finally, my own. The morning stretched over the horizon like a lazy cat, spilling warm sunlight over the neighborhood. I watched from my kitchen window, sipping coffee, reflecting on the surreal escalation of suburban warfare. The HOA meeting was tomorrow, where I'd lay my trap, my quiet rebellion against Karen's audacious antics. Karen's lawn, once the envy of every homeowners association member, now bore a curious hue. It whispered secrets of vinegar and blue dye, a rebellious streak in an otherwise predictable suburban landscape she hadn't noticed yet, too busy prancing around with her self-assured superiority. But the whispers would rise to a chorus soon enough. I had quietly noted the water bills, documenting the astronomical leap in consumption. It was evidence, cold and irrefutable, locked away with other observations, the subtle change in the soil pH after my vinegar-soaked intervention, the security footage capturing her midnight escapades, coiled hose in hand like a thief in the night. I couldn't rush. Calculations and patience were my allies. A plan meticulously crafted needed time to unfold. Like the opening of a rare flower, I prepared my presentation for the HOA, a calculated narrative of theft, manipulation, and consequences that would leave little room for her theatrics or denials. The irony wasn't lost on me. Karen, who had thrived on wielding the HOA like a personal gavel, would soon be judged by it. The same rules she lorded over everyone would now be her undoing, a poetic justice I savored with each detail I added to my case file. I had thought of confronting her directly, of watching her concoctions of lies unravel under scrutiny, but no, this way was better. It was clean, efficient, undeniable. She had molded the HOA into a tool of control, and now it would be her reckoning. I'd let the process do the talking. My heart beat steady, an unwavering drum in the symphony of my resolve. I imagined the moment, her face as I laid bare her deeds before the board. The neighbors, once silent under her reign, would see her for what she truly was. It was a vision sharpened by every quiet injustice she'd orchestrated. The house was silent, save for the ticking of the clock. Each second was a step closer to the unveiling, to a shift in the neighborhood's balance of power. I didn't need to see her to know she was out there, probably pondering the strange shade of her grass, oblivious to the storm gathering on the horizon. Justice isn't swift, it's stealthy, biding its time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Tomorrow would be that day, the day the truth would rise, undeniable and irrefutable, like the sun itself. The last sip of coffee was cold, bitter, but it suited the mood, a fitting prelude to a reckoning that had been long overdue. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the cul-de-sac, where the events of the past weeks had unfurled like an overgrown vine. It was the evening of the HOA meeting, a small gathering with an unusually large significance. The air was sticky with anticipation and the lingering scent of freshly mowed grass mingling with a faint hint of vinegar, a reminder of both innocence, stolen, and the silent reckoning to come. Karen's house stood stately, her once pristine lawn now marred by the remnants of my unorthodox handiwork. The grass, tinged with a subtle blue dye, was a stark testament to her greed. In the end, Karen had been hoisted by her own petard, caught in the web of her own creation. Her lawn, an emerald sea, had been siphoning the very essence of our neighborhood water through its hidden veins stretching into my domain. The issue had become a symbol of larger truths, of boundaries crossed, of civility breached. As I walked towards the community center, I felt a calm resolve, a quiet certainty that right would find its place again. The center was a modest building, its walls lined with pictures of past gatherings, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded beyond its doors. Inside, the room was abuzz, whispers floating through the air like dandelion seeds on a summer breeze. Eyes tracked Karen as she entered, her expression a mix of defiance and something else, perhaps a crack in her armor. People were seated in a semicircle, forming an unspoken tribunal. In their midst was a space reserved, practically marked by the weight of expectation. The meeting commenced with the usual formalities, a droning ritual that seemed almost ludicrous given the underlying tension. But soon, the spotlight turned to the matter at hand. I watched as the HOA president, a man of few words but great presence, outlined the situation. Each fact was like a bead on a string, coming together to form an indisputable whole. Karen shifted in her seat, her eyes darting, searching for an anchor. Her protests were brief, a mere whisper against the flood of evidence. The room held its breath, a collective moment of reckoning. And then, the president announced the verdict. The HOA would issue a fine, not for the water theft alone, but for the betrayal of trust, the fracturing of community ties. I felt no need for triumph. This was justice in its simplest form, a restoration of balance. Karen was sidelined. Her influence in the community diminished. The measure was meant not to punish, but to mend, to encourage healing where there had been harm. After the meeting, people lingered, discussing the outcome in hushed tones. I stood by the door, absorbing the change in the atmosphere. There was a lightness, a lifting of the collective spirit. As I left, I noticed Karen standing alone, her eyes fixed on something only she could see. In that moment, I felt a pang of empathy. Perhaps this was a chance for her to change, to understand the meaning of true community. Outside, the evening air was cool, a gentle balm after the heat of the day. I walked home slowly, leaving footprints in the dew-kissed grass, feeling the world settle around me. The vines of our lives had been untangled, the balance restored. In the glow of the streetlights, I saw the neighborhood anew, each house a beacon of shared hopes, each person a thread in the fabric we had woven together.